So let me change the discussion just a little bit. We talked about disruption, we've talked about why and how and what we might do, but what are the biggest challenges that those who enter a disruptive market as a disruptor face? Because I run a company who is now using AI to process device data from pacemakers, defibrillators, any type of monitor in the world. You know, we have challenges every day of how to enter that market and change physician behavior and get patients to accept that what we are doing is helping them. What do you guys see as a disruptor? What challenges do we all face?
Sure. So, I mean, in the AI space, I'm glad you mentioned AI in particular. I think we all saw the news about Watson. There was a lot of hopes, a lot of promise built around Watson. Now we're seeing layoffs. Great example of a big non-healthcare company gobbled up a bunch of really amazing startups and kind of botched it, right? So I think the challenge is when you are a non-healthcare company entering healthcare, one, knowing healthcare. And then two, when you're a large health tech company or a large tech company, you know, how do you take small pockets of innovation and actually streamline them to work? And again, hate to use the Allscripts example again, but you know, one of the cool things Allscripts is doing is they've invested in a new EMR, Avenel, which is using AI. So for clinical decision support, they are wanting to predict and help physicians. And smartly and rightly so, one of our biggest problems with EMRs, all of us as docs hate every EMR, right? But if I could work with an AI technology, machine learning technology, that actually helped me, knew what I liked, knew that I was a rheumatologist, even before I had to type anything in, that's amazing. So there's a lot of opportunity, but there remains a lot of challenges.
What about the use of AI for data processing in terms of helping us manage, and just in my space, there is data coming from defibrillators and pacemakers every day. It never stops. Half of it's trash, half of it is clinically actionable. What about using AI, machine learning, deep learning even, teaching machines to help us process this data? What do you guys think?
So it's time to do that. In particular, we talk about radiology being a prime opportunity because it's so big. There's so much data just in one image. I was just at the European meeting on radiology in February, and they had a whole section devoted to AI showcase in radiology. And I go back, I'm this old that I go back to the old jukeboxes in PACS systems, which is HIMSS sort of 15 years ago. AI is really important, say, in this instance, because you can actually look at a patient's record, the longitudinal health record, bring in lab tests, pathology, mash it up with a lot of imaging data, and then get to that N of one actionable moment. But to Geeta's point, the question to this question about disruption, you know, we say culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you take a big scalable solution, you overlay it on this fragmented environment that I talked about earlier, and there could be some insensitivity in terms of physician workflow and how things get done in healthcare. So I think this is one of the concerns that I have when we use the word disruption. Doctors really don't want to be disrupted because workflow is how they make money.
Doctors like the same but better, right? They want a new cephalosporin that has a better resistance pattern.
I disagree. So here's the thing, right? We went to medical school. I'm a rheumatologist. One of the reasons I went into rheumatology is because it was cutting edge genetics, research, biologics. We love innovation, actually. We're used to it, however, on the clinical side, right? A lot of us as docs, it's all about innovation. But when it comes to the back end of the office, that's where our challenges are, because we didn't go to medical school to focus on the back end. We want to see patients. I believe that. And I picked on Allscripts only because for us as physicians, the EMR industry has totally disrupted our day.
Absolutely.
And it is incumbent on every EMR company, Epic, Cerner, Allscripts, NextGen, ECW. They have an opportunity to disrupt, is my point. And with Allscripts, I have watched them change their flavor in the market because it's so easy to sit back on their laurels and say, hey, we got the outpatient market, right? So whether it's Epic or Cerner, I think we should be looking at them and putting pressure on them to say, how are you disrupting? You guys have the entire industry.
Well, I will say that, to your point of disruption, Athena Health, they have something called More Disruption Please, where they want startup companies to basically pitch them, and they will put them on their interface if you show value to patients, physicians, workflow, and customers. So I think some are doing it, but we need more to do it. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, I totally agree, and it's just kind of to hit on some of the points being made here. we talk about workflow, and to me, that's the biggest barrier, is that people will create these amazing technologies and then fail to accommodate for the disruption in the workflow, the clinical practice. And so I look at AI, and I'm more encouraged by sort of the nipping at the edges. So what Nuance is doing, right, with the AI, with their AI, to kind of help radiologists manage by exception, right? So instead of having to read through every single image, they can use some AI and go, well, we've identified potentially these 10 that might look like there's a problem. Now please go and take a closer look at this. Now you still need to look at all the others, but at least the AI is helping the workflow there. So instead of looking at a stack in sort of chronological order, first in, first out, they're now able to look at it in prioritized order, which is something new. It helps the workflow. So it's that, to your point,
That's a
it's
fascinating,
incremental.
I mean, I think the startling reality is that humanity is overrated. And that artificial intelligence is now judged in the context of humanity, which I think is the big mistake. We're looking for an AI, a chatbot interface that is as good as a human. That's such a mediocre goal. It's going to be better than a human, which puts in question, humanity in that broader context. I think that's where the interesting part is.
I love where you're going, John, because actually one of the things that we've done in our practice too, and you mentioned this, is patient education, right? So we're actually using AI, a very small company, startup company, Chirp, and that's exactly what it is. It's Chirp. We are having this chatbot talk to our patients. What is a mammogram? What is a pap smear? What do these cells mean? 24/7. So it's not replacing a person, right? But it's 3 in the morning, you can't sleep, and you want to interact with one of my docs, you interact with the chatbot, and then hopefully you bring that piece of the conversation in and are better informed when you actually do come meet one of my physicians. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that, it's a bit of Alan Turing and the Turing test. I think that that's the old modality. That the new modality is that I can use AI to create a superhuman construct, that I can speak to my patient perhaps from a genderless perspective on demand, that I could listen to the voice of that patient and quantify word choice and say, last time we spoke, you said pain 7 times. Today, you said it 37 times. An intangible that physician might not get. I can listen to breath, and I can listen for voice, and I can check for things like Parkinson's disease. So to me, AI-mediated physical exam and all those clinical constructs are extraordinarily important. And I mean, if I were a physician, I'd duck, because AI is coming at you that fast.
The example I use when people get that sort of fear in their eyes around AI taking over the job, I look at sort of the auto industry. And you look at back in the old days, the mechanics, they had to know everything about the car, and they're the only ones who are possible to fix it. Now, what do the mechanics do? They plug in a device, and they look at the device, and now they're fixing your car. Do we have fewer mechanics today than we did back in the day? Nope. But they're still using the intelligence. They're just using the tools to do things faster, quicker, better, cheaper. And to me, that's where AI can definitely help us.
I would quantify the number of guys on a line and say that's actually decreased. But again, I don't mourn the blacksmith. I don't mourn the blacksmith.
But I would agree that medicine is very different. And physicians, there's still a doctor-patient relationship that's absolutely critical to healing and caring, but you should use all the tools. And as Eric Topol, one of my mentors, says, the problem is the digital world is over here in a separate orbit away from physicians. And it takes doctors so long to adopt change. And that's unacceptable, and that's what's holding us back. What do doctors change? They change based on data and papers published in medical journals. They base change on what the elders in their society are doing, the thought leaders, and then what their buddies and colleagues are doing. And we have to lead the change.